happy to have you here. We missed seeing you last week because we weren't here. It is Tuesday night, so that means that we are talking live. We are rambling, which I'm good at. So if it's your first time checking us out, take a look at some of our other videos. They're a little bit shorter, edited. We like to tell you this because for some reason when you search us on YouTube, the first thing that pops up are most of our live shows, and it's a third of what we do, but the others are more us. So
yes.
We're glad to have you here, though. Sorry for all the issues if you were here early on. And if you saw the first 3 minutes of rambling, sorry. That'll be gone by tomorrow.
Yes. So tonight we are talking about why we are different than you. And we had a very troll-baity, clickbait, baity title. And actually the reason for this is because this is one of our oldest planned videos. And
it's actually going to be our second video.
Yeah, we planned on making this as our second video because when we posted our plan for financial independence, I was expecting to hear a lot of comments because every other financial blogger that I read, an early retiree, all the comments are filled with like, oh yeah, well if I had this, then that, and oh if I had this windfall, then this could have happened, or just plain lies like, oh, trust fund baby, stuff like that. So I thought it'd be cool to make a video about here's all of the unfair advantages that we do have, that we can think of and that we know of, and get them all out there for the trolls. So when a troll says, oh yeah, I wish I had that, well you can say, yeah, I mean, we're very grateful for it, and here's the video that we talk about it. So that was the point of this video, and it was planned a year ago, and then it just got pushed farther and farther and farther down the list. And tonight we thought, this would be a good week to talk about it.
Yeah, coming off of our cruise, we figured it would be kind of a good time. We got a few comments on our most recent video about our vacation, and weren't necessarily bad, not at all. Just kind of asking what's going on. This is sort of not what you usually do.
Yeah, one person, said, what's your angle? And just to be clear, we don't have an angle. We, weren't sponsored by Royal Caribbean in our last video, or even so much as discounted or anything like that.
Although,
they had
if
no
they want
affiliation.
to,
Oh yeah, speaking of Royal Caribbean, we're big fans. Anyways.
We love you, Royal Caribbean.
But we just really liked it, and what our angle is, and it's always been, and if you've been a long-time viewer, you know exactly this, but we make the videos A, that we want to watch, and B, that we want to make. And so this information wasn't out there, and that's usually a big motivator for us to make a video.
If it's something that we can't find, we want to give it to people, so.
Right. So the ones we want to watch and the ones we want to make. And so that's our angle, quote unquote. And then another comment was a little more negative, said, WTF, I thought you guys were super budget savers, what's with a vacation? We'll talk about why we went on vacation and how it's an unfair thing coming up in a second, but even if it wasn't, for us living in Florida, cruises are very cheap. We live within 100 miles.
It's easy. We don't have to pay for a flight to get anywhere.
Right.
That's such a
big
added expense for people.
And last minute deals if you're flexible. I've actually cruised once with friends for $134 total out the door with tax. It was like $200 after alcohol and gratuities and everything.
And even if you think back to our very first video, it was our transatlantic cruise that we got for $500 each for 12 days. A 12-day cruise.
Yes.
For $500.
So we're about to talk about why this particularly doesn't apply to us. Might as well just say it because Lauren's mom took us on that cruise. But even if she didn't, cruising happens to be a pretty budget-friendly way to vacation if you so choose.
We don't need to defend cruising, though.
No, that wasn't the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about why we're different, aka all the advantages that we have that you might not have, and maybe you do. So as we're going through this, if you can think of an advantage that we have that we're forgetting, because as we're going through this list, we're just constantly thinking of all these things, and I'm sure we're forgetting tons of people and tons of things, so if we did miss you, we're sorry. And if you can relate to any of these, let us know.
Also though, yes, we might have advantages, but you probably have different ones, and I think that's something to think about too, that these aren't necessarily things that we thought about until we started, hearing comments or thinking of what people would say to us, and that's when we started saying, well, we do have these things, but until then, we didn't really notice them. So you might have these things that if you just think about them, you'll know you have them.
Right. I don't know if I said the purpose of the video was in this video or in our mess up, but basically, when the trolls say, oh, I would have done this if I had that, we can point them to this video and say, yeah, we were very aware of the generosity and very grateful for it. Here's where we talk about it. That's what we're doing in this video. Hope you guys are ready, because here comes a list. Are you ready? To start, unfair advantage numero uno. A lot is Lauren's mom.
My mom. My mom is a gift giver by nature and very generous, and I've talked before about growing up and how my mom makes a very nice income and so my mom's always taken us on vacations back to when Mike and I were even just dating. Mike would get to go on my family vacations, which every year was a cruise. that was just what we did. Florida.
So she mentioned
cheap.
in the video that she's done 17 cruises. It's not like we go on, 10 cruises a year. It's since she was 10 or 12.
5. No, I was
since
5.
she was 5. Okay.
I was 5 on my first cruise. It was the Looney Tunes boat.
Yes. So not only has she been going for a long time, but I have also been invited since I was 15 or 16.
18, 17.
We started dating when I was
17.
16.
No, he was 17.
Anyways, first cruise. Every year we pretty much go on a cruise with Lauren's mom. And in fact, we're planning next year an even bigger...
Yeah, to maybe do transatlantic and stay in Europe for a few weeks. So
on Lauren's mom's bill. So
yeah. So
thank you, Lauren's mom.
Yes.
And what was I going to say about that?
I don't know.
Oh, shoot. Oh, so for us, it's an unfair advantage because actually when we go on this vacation once a year,
As
we
our
actually
friend
save money.
so nicely pointed out to us yesterday, we save money.
Yes.
Because we're not.
But all of our other travel we pay for. We're paying
Yes.
for Norway, we pay for
All of our road
FinCon,
trips
everything
last
last
week.
year, our trip to Europe,
Last week.
everything paid for. We pay for everything else, but she does do that.
We are going to lose this camera soon because it's been on for quite some time now.
Yes. So if you lose us, we'll be right back. Let's move through these a little bit faster. Go ahead.
So my mom has always, I don't know why this has happened, but she's always paid vet bills. She always takes our dog Zoe to the vet for her yearly checkup, and she takes her for spa days, she calls them, to get her nails clipped and her ears cleaned and all that. She's just always done it. And so that's obviously a big expense.
I'm just trying to I was going
pets.
through the budget that we sent out last a month, and I'm like, what are things that are not included that most people would question? And so Zoe bills.
Restaurants. My mom takes us out usually at least once a week because she wants to, and never really extravagant things like all the time. Like
It's been more like every other week, I would say.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Every week to every other week around. But nothing crazy, or that's just how she likes to spend time with us. She does also help us out with our cell phone because we're on a family plan. And
So basically how that happened was she had her own cell phone bill, we had our own cell phone bill, and when we moved back to Florida, she allowed us to go into her plan for whatever the increase was. So we're on a family plan, but she's subsidizing the family portion of it, and we're paying our part, which is really less than our part because she does the first block of it.
Right.
Moving on to my parents, we also do restaurants sometimes lunch after church. So some of our restaurant eating is with them. We know the shop tools, all the shop stuff, all my dad's tools he just gave us, stuff like that. It's kind of a weird one that I thought I'd throw on the list because you probably never wondered might have wondered where it's at on our budget. We use their Netflix. I don't really know why.
I use my sister's Hulu.
Yeah, it's $8 a month. We could easily just get our own, but I don't know. We've always used it since we were in college. We've always just used their Netflix. Also, this one's kind of less monetary, but always taught DIY stuff from when I was a kid from my parents.
It turns monetary, though. The
Right.
things you can't do, you're going to be paying for.
Being a kid and always having tools put in your hands, and when you wanted to build something, materials being provided and that sort of thing. It's pretty big as a kid. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Another person who gets singled out would be my boss and our pastor, Pastor Larry, who
We've known forever, first of all.
Couple big recurring monthly things that you'll notice in our budget is our housing is super cheap, and that is thanks to him. And it's definitely an unfair advantage that we can have our house so cheap. And then also all the shop stuff that...
This too.
Oh yeah, all of this stuff. Pretty much...
We're here because he lets us.
Right. There's a lot of things that are just kind of random things that I couldn't think of all the little things that he has given us or paid for or things like that. But just things like when I bought a table saw for the shop, he said, how much was it? I'll pay it for you. So just kind of like all these like little things that I can't really think of all the things. And we never talked to him about saying this, so I don't necessarily want to dig too deep into that. But there's another person in our life. Speaking of that, our jobs. So both of our jobs have very flexible schedules and are very accommodating for time off. And which is a huge advantage. If you have a regular cubicle 9-to-5 job, you're not going to have the freedom that we have to, I made that thumbnail that we made for this show at work today. So like, if you were in a cubicle with a supervisor sitting over your shoulder, it just isn't a possibility. So that's a big thing for us. The fact that I can walk/scooter to work is a big advantage that not a lot of people have. Also, this one I need to read up on the specifics, but I have a very favorable tax situation because I work for a church. You can actually write off things like housing and cell phone and expenses and stuff like that. So we actually save a lot on taxes in that way. I need to do a video on that at some point, but up to this point, I've just trusted our church's accountant and not looked at it for myself, and I definitely need to do that. I have a book at home that is about that. Let's go to comments real quick. As I said in the other comments, I wonder how you are different from other people except that you didn't massively dissave during the global financial crisis of 2008. Yes, we'll talk about that in 1 second, Sharuk. Finance Bar says, my wife won a trip to Jamaica, no hate, using RA to offset the taxes of a free trip. That's awesome. I always thought it'd be fun to go on a cruise. Not sure if I could handle being trapped on a boat for a week, though.
You won't feel trapped.
It's not like that. It is so big. It is a city at sea.
Seriously.
What do you mean? USA, there's Netflix.
Use.
What?
You mean use.
Yes, use their Netflix. Oh, we just log into their account. So technically in their terms of service, you're not supposed to share with families, but then they released
You could create accounts.
where you create accounts and then pay an extra, I think it's $3 or $4 a month to add more people to your account. I don't know if they do this anymore, but we were on it for a long time and we shared it with them, and we're in different, even at the time, different states.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
No, I never used it in New York.
I guess not. No, we had Plex at that point. Anyways, they say you can't use it, but then they offer you a plan where you can share it with your family. So I don't really understand that.
Sorry, Netflix.
I also get cheap housing, paying 1/3 of normal rent while I rent out my own at full price. Thank you to my stepfather. That's awesome.
Very cool.
All of our friends are on a huge Airbnb kick right now.
It's kind of funny.
And they're killing it right now with Airbnb.
Seriously.
If you have an extra room,
do it.
It is unbelievable. My one friend is renting his place for $60 a night.
The other one just did.
That's just a room.
His whole 2-bedroom apartment for $200 a night.
It's crazy.
And we're in like little Sarasota. There's, I mean,
yeah.
it's,
I guess we do have a beach. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Lauren,
my work, it's family owned and flexible. So again, 9 to 5 cubicle, can't necessarily do.
Something a little more abstract. We're both very lucky to have jobs at all with not having college. Although Lauren did go to gemology school, which is a program-based, like a certificate type thing. And we want to give a side shout out to my Aunt Julie, who lives in New York.
Yes.
Because when we did decide to go out for her to go to school...
She opened up her house for us to stay with her for 6 months.
Yes. And so thank you, Aunt Julie. We never paid rent or... I mean, it's insane how...
And we tried to give her money.
Yes.
We tried. She wouldn't let us.
Yeah. So thank you, Aunt Julie.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's talk about some ways that we're not that different. Of all these things, these are all pretty minimal. I mean, I say minimal. I'm sure it amounts to, I didn't add it up, maybe $100 or $200 a month. I don't know. I'm guessing off the top of my head. Probably more than that.
Probably more.
But we don't have any windfalls or inheritances. We're not trust fund babies. We don't have, or any really in the foreseeable future. Like, we don't have, rich grandparents or anything like crazy wealthy coming our way. So we are, on our own except for... Sorry about that.
We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. And then there's this whole other half of this video that we could talk about, but honestly, I think it warrants its own whole video, is that if we didn't have these advantages, we'd either just be okay with not having them. I'm pretty confident that our lifestyle would not inflate.
No.
If, for example, we didn't go on a cruise every year. I think we'd be just as happy, camping or something like that. Like, our frugal nature, I think we would just find ways.
And we started to talk about that in our 3 biggest budget busters video, where we mentioned that, we do get our house for $600, but if we didn't have that, we would
$650, by the way.
Find something else for that, whether it's something smaller or something odd like a mother-in-law suite. We would track that down and find it because that's our budget.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever mentioned that, but before we moved into the house that we're in now, there was a mother-in-law suite actually for the exact same price right down the road that we were going to move into. It wasn't as nice as where we're living now, and wasn't as
a house,
but we were fully ready to move into that place. So then there's now a question of the accepting handouts as a married couple, and not necessarily the ethics of that. I don't think that's the right word, but it's sort of the opposite of a lot of couples have to struggle with supporting one parent financially, and so the other one sees money going out every month. And we're just really lucky to not have experienced that, and to not experience that, but actually the opposite, that, what is what are our feelings as a married couple basically taking handouts? And personally, obviously I don't have a problem with it, and she doesn't have a problem with it because we do it and we're talking about it, but I could see how people would feel shame, I guess, in that. Particularly in our position where it's not that we need the money, clearly, and that we have goals of retiring way before our parents. So where's the line there of accepting things from them when we have, we're going to be retiring much earlier than them. So basically it comes down to their own generosity. If they didn't want to provide those things, that wouldn't change our relationship, but we're not going to refuse them out of some ethical dilemma or something like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to hear your comments on. What if you were in our position? Do you think the handouts we're receiving are substantial enough to warrant a video like this, or is that just normal? Do you guys get this kind of stuff, or what is your situation like? And 2, what do you think there's an ethical dilemma there between accepting handouts like that? While we're waiting for comments on that, the last thing I wanted to talk about was being on YouTube and how it actually has changed things slightly for us, at least for me. Because now we're under this magnifying glass being on YouTube, quite literally almost, sending you out our monthly budget, income and expenses, talking openly and honestly about everything. There's this little twinge of like, maybe we shouldn't take this kind of stuff because it just gives people an excuse to, diminish what we're working towards. So, we get to the end of this and we reach our goal, and then someone can say, well, yeah, obviously, look at all these things that you had. Anyone could have done it with that. And it's like, is it worth...
Which I have been told before in person.
Yeah? I didn't know that. We'll talk later. So there's that whole side of it. Like, do we want to be an island just to prove people wrong, or are taking these handouts worth it? And I think that's why we're making this video.
I think it's why we're making the video, but I again think that people who have that attitude of, well, I could have done that if I had your situation, I think those are the people who the message didn't get to them. They didn't understand it. They wouldn't have done it either way. That's sort of my feeling.
Right, and that's what Riffman just said. People complaining about your advantages are just looking for excuses for why they're not saving anything.
Yeah, I think no matter what our situation is, someone would find an excuse. And that would be the reason. Right.
Let's go back a little bit. Tax advantage, nice. Yes. It's actually pretty sweet, the setup working for a church. Oh gosh, they're coming in quick. Awesome Parents, great channel. Thank you very much. There's one right before that.
Where are the handouts here?
Ooh, I love Plex. I do love Plex.
We like Plex a lot.
Believe it or not, I want to talk about it real quick. I know we're at 21 minutes. That was one of my most proud moments, is before Plex was like anything, it was just a thing on a computer. I set up a Mac Mini, when Mac Minis were like the huge ones. They weren't very mini back then. I think it was 2008. Might have been 2009. And set up a Harmony One remote, like a universal remote, to control the computer, to control Plex. Before Roku, before any of that stuff.
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Anyways. I like the point that Scott makes. Are they handouts, or are they simply gifts and generosity? Because I almost questioned that when you were saying handouts.
Right.
I wouldn't call them handouts. I know that there are people who might.
And it's funny, he says, I know that my parents' giving is one of their love languages. That's exactly, both her mom and my mom, very, very much, that's their love language. What were you going to say? Is that it?
No, yeah, I was just going to keep reading.
Okay. So, Sebastian says, normal, no problem for friends, family, as long as you can life happy without all that. Yeah, and I think that's the case, is that we wouldn't be any less happy without it, and it's not inflating our lifestyle to the point that we couldn't not have those things. Ryan says, I'm in a similar position, on track to retire at 38. My parents are planning on retirement only 3 years before us. I do turn down some handouts from them if they're large. Interesting. Any reasons why in particular? Scott says, in either case, we save money not because we're accepting handouts, but because our family loves us through generosity. I think that's the message that we're all kind of on the same page here. Finance Bard says, everyone's situation is different. Many people have no debt after college. They don't understand why you don't get a house or nice things after graduation. That's a whole other thing we didn't think about is, we have, this is not to diminish any of the things that we get, but imagine, actually my parents paid my year and a half of college as well. So that's a huge thing. You're talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could consider a handout of generosity of, your parents paying your school. So I forgot about that. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for the loan payment. Speaking of Plex, where did you get your media? Back in 2009, that would be illegally. But that was before Netflix and iTunes and stuff. And I don't know why I'm making excuses. Honestly, I don't have that big of a problem with torrenting. Honestly, now it's just so easy to get it legitimately.
Yeah.
Back then it was harder. Like, it was when you had to go buy CDs. iTunes was a thing, but just barely. Like, I don't remember. Anyways, it was not possible to get TV shows easily, so I stole them.
And then we started paying for Hulu.
Yes. Yeah, we paid for Hulu for a long time. I think I'm in love with you, Lauren. I don't know if you're a man or a woman, but thank you either way. I do love her too.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Riffman says, are you trying to prove a point or are you trying to help people by making these videos? Trying to help people and also help ourselves. There's a lot of reasons. We did make a video called Why We Make YouTube Videos. And it has become even more helping people. Like, we got an email, it's now 3 weeks ago, but it was from a 17-year-old who said, I just watched all your videos. I've stayed up, the past 5 nights to watch them all, and you're helping me a lot. Like, that's crazy. And got an email right before we left for the trip of someone asking for, help with some things. So, yes, at this point, it is very much even more than before to help people. That we're kind of honing in on how to do that as well.
Well, and helping people and just helping people to see their own potential and to think things.
Right.
I don't know.
I guess inspire would be a good word. Sebastian says, when you talk about things, that is what you can take a lot out of a budget. Scott says, you guys are a great supplement to the Dave Ramsey and Mr. Money Mustache I've been reading lately. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That's very kind of you to even compare us to those two. Ryan says, I turned down large handouts because I'm afraid of animosity or excuses for why we're retiring early. I don't want to say, well, sure, your parents paid for it. I definitely understand your point of view. Yeah, that's the same thing for us. I just don't think anyone could make the argument for us that paying Zoe's vet bill, is what pushed us over the edge. Yeah. I think I remember you saying earlier that you turned down larger handouts. If that's the case where you're, being offered thousands or whatever, I could see, I don't know if I would do that. In fact, recently, we don't want to talk about it right now, but that was actually a potential option for us and we turned that down. So I guess we would turn it down in some circumstances. We teach what we need to learn.
That's
very true.
We've said this before, but we most often are talking to ourselves when we make these videos. They're lessons to ourselves.
Right.
So.
Susie, I meant that in a good way. Yes, that was in a good way. I've been inspired by your story. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being a part of it. I think that is where we'll end it because that is where the comments ended. And I think that's a good place to end that. We do it to teach ourselves and we do it to inspire and we do it to teach and to help. All of those things. And
to see a different point of view. So often you're shown just one thing by the media or online and that's not the only thing.
Yeah. So thank you guys, and thank you if we missed anybody, and if we missed anything, sorry about that. If you guys can think of anything else as you're watching our videos, let us know, and I'll just keep the description of this being like a running thing of, as people point out, things that are advantages to us. I like to have them all in place, and even just making this video, basically when we made this video, we sat down to say, what are all the things that we're grateful for? Like, that's a great motive to do anything, and by making it a video, and if people are here to talk about it, that's awesome. So thank you guys.
Thanks.
We will talk to you on Friday, which will be part 2 of the Fix Your Finances series, which is going to be identifying problem areas in your spending. That's going to be a biggie. Bye, guys. Hold on, I got to find which one we're on. This one. And